The Ohio night air hangs heavy and still over Holmes County, pressing against the wooden walls of a farmhouse steeped in silence. It is shortly after 11 p.m., and the familiar, warm glow of the kerosene lamps has been dialed down to a faint, flickering amber. At 18 years old, Rebecca lies atop her quilt, her body as rigid as the floorboards beneath her. She hasn't changed into a nightgown. Instead, she remains fully dressed in her plain blue cotton dress and black apron, her breath coming in shallow, jagged gasps. Every sense she possesses is directed toward the darkened hallway, listening for a signal. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by the rhythmic, unmistakable creak of heavy work boots ascending the stairs. Her heart hammers with such frantic intensity that she can feel the pulse thrumming against the high collar of her dress. Although her parents and siblings are tucked away in their own rooms, there is no need for the intruder to be quiet. Her father is well aware of the visitor. In truth, the boy has his full blessing to be here. This is the tradition of bundling, the Amish way of courtship. Yet, as the door handle slowly turns, Rebecca realizes with a surge of panic that no one, not her mother nor her sisters, has ever explained what she is actually supposed to do when a young man finally lies down beside her in the dark. To the modern world, the idea of a teenage boy climbing into a girl's bed with her parents' blessing sounds like madness. But for Rebecca, it is a practice steeped in centuries of necessity. This is bundling, a tradition born in 17th century Europe among peasant families who lived in tiny, drafty cottages. Back then, winters were brutal and firewood was a precious resource. When a young man came to court a woman, there was no heated parlor for them to sit in, and they certainly couldn't linger outside in the snow. The practical solution was to lie together fully clothed under heavy hand-stitched quilts to keep warm while they talked. The official rules Rebecca learned were as rigid as the wooden headboard of her bed. Both must remain entirely dressed, bonnets, waistcoats, and heavy cotton layers intact. In some stricter communities, a bundling board or a heavy wooden plank is placed down the center of the mattress to act as a physical barrier. The goal is strictly emotional and spiritual intimacy. Physical contact is supposed to be limited to a chaste embrace or holding hands. It is a system built on the absolute trust that two teenagers, left alone in the dark for hours, will choose restraint over desire. However, as Rebecca stares at the ceiling, she wonders how many of those rules are truly kept once the rest of the house falls into a deep, unsuspecting sleep. The door to Rebecca's bedroom creaked open, and the silhouette of a young man framed the doorway. It was Jacob, a 19-year-old with broad shoulders and hands that already bore the calluses of a decade's farm labor. He did not speak, and neither did she. The air in the small room felt heavy, charged with a strange, pressurized stillness. Jacob hesitated for only a heartbeat before sitting on the edge of the mattress and then lying down beside her. They lay there like two fallen trees, stiff and unmoving, staring up into the pitch-black rafters of the ceiling. For the first hour, the only sound was the synchronized thumping of their hearts. Finally, Jacob broke the silence with a whisper that sounded like gravel grinding together. He spoke of the Sunday singing, the steady gait of his horse, and the health of her father's new cow. It was a masterclass in the most painful small talk imaginable, conducted while lying mere inches apart under a quilt her grandmother had stitched by hand. Around 1 a.m. he cautiously shifted, his heavy arms settling across her shoulder. Rebecca went rigid, the scent of lye soap and dry hay filling her senses. As he eventually drifted into a light sleep, she lay wide awake, wondering if this confusing, heavy warmth was what the world called love. The third boy to climb the stairs was named Levi, and he was nothing like the hesitant, quiet Jacob. At 21, Levi carried himself with an experienced confidence that was whispered about among the girls at the Sunday singings. When he entered Rebecca's room, he didn't pause at the threshold to let the silence settle. He walked straight to the bed with a knowing smile that she could almost feel in the dark. "Nervous?" he asked, his voice a low, smooth vibration that sent a shiver down her spine. Before she could find the words to answer, he was lying beside her, much closer than the rules ever intended. This time, the air didn't feel heavy with awkwardness. It felt electric with a dangerous magnetic heat. When Levi reached out, his arm didn't settle tentatively on her shoulder. It wrapped firmly around her waist, pulling her back against his chest until she could feel the steady thrum of his heart. When he turned her to face him and leaned in for a kiss, it wasn't a cautious brush of lips. It was deep, hungry, and overwhelming. For the first time, Rebecca felt a terrifying melt inside her, a biological pull that threatened to drown out every sermon she had ever heard. As his hand began to move upward, she had to physically catch his wrist, her mind screaming no, even as her body hummed with a treacherous newfound yes. At 19, Rebecca met Eli. He was 22, a quiet young man with kind eyes and hands that were perpetually rough from woodworking. When he arrived at her bedroom door on a crisp Saturday night, he did not walk straight in with the entitlement of Levi. Instead, he knocked softly, a gentle, rhythmic tapping, and waited for her to whisper, "Come in." When he finally sat on the edge of her bed, he reached into his pocket and handed her a small, smooth object. It was a wooden bird, a wren, intricately carved from a single piece of cherry wood. "I made this for you," he whispered in the dark. "They mate for life." As Rebecca ran her thumb over the delicate wooden feathers, she felt a connection that transcended mere physical attraction. Eli lay down beside her, maintaining a respectful distance, and they began to talk. They didn't speak of horses or farm labor. They spoke of their secret doubts, their private faith, and their shared dreams of the world beyond the horizon. It was the first time Rebecca had ever felt truly seen as a person, rather than just a body in a bed. Under the heavy quilt, he simply held her hand, and the simple act of their fingers intertwining felt more intimate and electric than any stolen kiss she had ever known. As the months passed, the Saturday nights Rebecca spent with Eli became the anchor of her existence. Unlike the fleeting, hungry encounters she had experienced before, her time with Eli was a slow and deliberate unfolding of two souls. By the fourth week, their physical progression remained remarkably patient. He had only just begun to kiss her cheek goodnight, a soft, lingering press of lips that felt more significant than any grand gesture. By month 3, their kisses had deepened, becoming long and breathless, yet they never felt desperate or stolen. Eli would cradle her face in his rough, woodworking hands, as if she were a piece of precious, fragile porcelain. The electric nature of their bundling was tempered by a mutual respect that Rebecca had never known was possible. On the nights when the physical attraction became an overwhelming tide, they didn't push against the boundaries of their faith. Instead, they would instinctively pull apart, rolling to opposite sides of the mattress to catch their breath and laugh at the sheer intensity of their own restraint. One night, amidst that familiar, comfortable darkness, Eli whispered the words that changed everything. "I want to marry you because you're the only person who makes me feel like I can be exactly who I am." When their wedding night finally arrived, they weren't strangers. They were partners who had already mastered the art of trust. Years after leaving the Amish world, Rebecca still keeps the small, carved wooden wren on her windowsill, a silent testament to the beauty that bundling could occasionally achieve. However, the memory that haunts her most is not her own wedding night, but the afternoon her younger sister, Katie, sat on her bed with trembling hands. At 18, Katie was about to begin her own journey into the darkness of Saturday nights, and she asked the one question no one in their community ever dared to answer. What am I supposed to do? Rebecca took a deep breath and broke the generational silence, telling her sister that her body belonged to her and that her no was sacred. Rebecca realized then that the greatest danger of bundling wasn't the tradition itself, but the shame-filled secrecy surrounding it. The system trusted teenagers with the ultimate test of self-control, while providing them zero education about their own desires. As she looks back, she sees the faces of many girls who didn't find an Eli, but a Levi, and who bore the heavy consequences of a failed system alone. Knowledge isn't a sin, Rebecca reflects, her voice now reaching out to others who grew up in the shadows. Silence is. She shares her truth so that no girl has to lie awake waiting for the sound of boots on the stairs, without knowing her own worth or her right to say stop.